There's just something special about walking through the orchard at harvest time. The branches are heavy with pears, and it's such a gift to be able to grow fruit that we can enjoy fresh and preserve for later. Having an orchard means more than just fresh eating. It's the chance to fill shelves with jars of home canned pears that bring a taste of summer into the colder months.
One of my favorite things with our homestead is that we have a small orchard that we can can a lot of our fruit, our pears, our peaches. We can make jams and jellies. We have apples to make applesauce and apple pie filling. This is something that was really important to us as a family. We love to eat fresh fruit, but we also can it. We know what's in our jars, and we can enjoy those fruits year round, and they're nice and healthy. Now, in a previous video, we dehydrated a lot of our pears and our peaches, which is another way that we preserve them, because I only have so much space for jars, but I can have a little bit more space for freeze-dried fruits and vegetables. Now, before you decide that you're going to can pears or peaches, there's a couple things you want to think about. How are you going to get that fruit? Where are you going to get your supplies for canning? And where are you going to store those things? Now, for us, we planted a small orchard about 4 or 5 years ago. So we're only into the second or third years of actually getting pears that we can and enjoy ourselves. With most fruit trees, when you plant them, it's going to take 2 to 3, sometimes 4 years before you're actually going to have fruit that you can enjoy and that it's strong enough for you to have enough fruit worth canning. Now, for our family, we have 3 pear trees. One of them is actually producing pears. They were each planted in consecutive years. So we should have a second one that has pears next year, hopefully, and then the third one the year after. But we don't need a ton of pears. Excess pears that we might have, we will put in our farm stand or sell in bulk locally to friends and family. But we did plant our trees 3 to 4 years ago so that we could actually start. So if you are someone who is starting out on the homestead and you want to have fruit trees, now is the time to plant so that in 3 or 4 years you're going to have enough to can. Now, if you don't want to have trees or you don't have space for fruit trees, that's fine. There's lots of places that you can find fruit. If there's a local farm stand or a local farm that has an orchard, oftentimes those companies or businesses will sell fruit in bulk, and you can get pears to can. If you have friends or family that have fruit trees, it's a great time to say, hey, we'll come, take care of your trees so that we can get pears. We'll come pick. All of those things. You take your kids and you can pick several boxes and you'll have plenty of pears that you can for your family. So there are other ways that you can find fresh fruit to can. Now, canning isn't necessarily something you just decide one day to start. It does take a little bit of time to get all of your supplies. You're going to need a water bath canner. You're going to need jars and lids and rims. You're going to need whatever you want to put in the jar for the syrup, or if you're just putting water in there. So for mine, I do just a simple syrup of sugar and water. And we'll show you that here a little bit in the video. So there are some supplies that you are going to need before you can actually jump into canning your pears. Now, personally, when I first started out, my mom had a lot of those supplies. So I said, hey, Mom, can I borrow your water bath canner? Hey, Mom, do you have some jars? My mother-in-law was also very helpful. So there are people around you. If you know people that have done it, or you have a community of friends online that are homesteading, start there and see if you can borrow supplies until you get to the point that you can purchase and get your own. Another great place to look is garage sales. My mother-in-law is the queen of finding mason jars, and she'll say, hey, they've got mason jars in this size. Do you want some? And I'll get them through her. So it's there's lots of places you can get canning supplies. Now, lastly, when you're thinking about canning, make sure you're thinking about how much you're canning and if you have space for what you're canning. We converted this closet a couple of years ago into our food pantry for all of our canned goods, all of our freeze-dried foods, all of our dehydrated treats. It all fits in here. Does it always all fit on the shelves? No, but it does fit in here, and I rotate everything to make sure that we're eating what we have, and it also helps me know how much to can each year. So this year was the first time I've canned pears in a really long time because we had pears finally. And so I did 2 batches of pears. They're going to go on the shelf, and then we can eat them all year. And then we'll decide how many jars are left next fall when we're ready to can pears. Did we eat them all? Do we need to do another batch? Or maybe we didn't eat them all. We thought we would. And so maybe I don't need to do as many. So it is important to have a space for them so you can see them, so you can rotate them, so you'll actually eat them. If you're just canning to can, you're going to end up with a lot of wasted food. So we've learned over the years the things that we like and the things that we don't. And I don't even bother canning things we don't eat because it's a waste of my time and it's a waste of good jars that I need for other stuff. So those are really the 3 things you need to look at before you decide you want to can pears or really anything. Where are you getting those pears from? Do you have the supplies? And then where are you going to put them when you're done? Now, once you've figured all of that out, then you can start canning your pears. And
Let's walk through the process of canning pears step by step. First, we sort our pears. We're going to go through the pears that we have and discard any that have really bad bruising or are super overripe. That'll make it harder to can them and they'll just be mushy. So we want to get them where they're kind of a yellow, still maybe a tint of green. So they're easy to peel and easy to cut. But if they're too green, it'll be really, really hard, and we don't want that. We're going to wash them thoroughly in cold water. I always start by making sure my sink is nice and clean and then fill it up with just a sink full of cold water and allow those pears to kind of hang out in that cold water. You can also add a little bit of vinegar to the water if you're worried about any pesticides or anything that might be on the surface of those pears. And that will help to kind of scrub off some of that extra debris or whatever might be coating the skins. Now, while those are soaking, I'm going to prepare a simple syrup solution. This is going to go into my jars of pears. Now, for me, I like to use a medium syrup, which is 2 cups of water to 1 cup of sugar. You can do a lighter syrup or you can do a heavier syrup, just depending on what your family wants. So I'm filling this pot up with about 16 cups of water, and then I'm going to add in about 8 cups of sugar and allow that to dissolve into that water. And then I will turn the heat on and allow that syrup to come to a boil. And so it's nice and hot. Now remember, we've talked about this before, but anytime that you're canning, you want hot jars to go into hot water. It's similar. You want hot jars to have hot syrup in it. So my jars, I'll usually take straight from the dishwasher when it's nice and hot, or I'll put them into some hot sink water or even my water bath canner to make sure that we don't have any cracking. But that's kind of what that simple syrup solution looks like before it boils. Now, while that's boiling, I'm going to prepare my pears. I'm going to peel each of my pears and get all of the skin off. We don't can our pears with skin because the skin oftentimes will be dirty and yucky. On some of the bruising is only on the skin and not on the pear itself. Once you peel them, you're able to also see the full range of the pear and see anything that might be on the pear itself. So peeling is really an important part of the process. I'll peel them all and then I will quarter them. So I like to quarter them and then I'll slice the core out of my pear. I have used an apple core before, just like one of the ones you get at the grocery store where you put it on top of your apple and push and it'll slice it into, 6 or 8 pieces. That's also an option, but some of my pears are a little too soft for that this time around, so I'm just doing it by hand. If they're have a little bit more structure and they're not as ripe, then that apple core will work really well. But you want to make sure and get those seeds out. Next, I'm going to place my pears into the mason jars. Now you can use quart size jars or you can use pint size jars. It's really up to you. I like to use quart size because one jar will feed our whole family. So we're going to put these pears into our sterilized jars. Make sure they're nice and snug in there. And once they have enough pears in each, I'm going to pour the hot syrup over the jars. Now, like I said earlier, we're using a medium syrup for this recipe. You could use a lighter syrup or a little heavier syrup, but we just pour them straight over those pears. Now, again, remember hot jars and hot syrup, cold jars, cold syrup. You don't want your jars cracking. That's never fun. Once they are filled, we're going to take some type of utensil. I usually use a little rubber spatula that I have, and I'm going to pull the air bubbles out of the jars. You don't want to leave those air bubbles because that's where you might have issues with bacteria. Then we're going to take a rag and wipe the rims of all of our jars. Some people like to use vinegar as well. Put a little vinegar on a paper towel and wipe the rims of your jars. This is especially good when you are doing something sticky like a simple syrup because it does sometimes get on those rims and then it will stop the jars from sealing with the lids. So just, take your time and try something different. If your jars aren't sealing, maybe use that vinegar. Once that's done, you're going to put your lids on and your rings on and tighten them just finger tight. You don't want them too tight or they can get too much pressure and crack while they're in your water bath canner. And nothing is worse than a cracked jar in your water bath canner. All that work down the drain. Okay, so my water bath canner has been sitting here. It's boiling. So I'm going to put all those jars right into my water bath canner. And I'm going to process them for 30 minutes. We are at a little bit higher elevation, so I need to adjust that time. But typically it's about 25 minutes for quart jars and 20 minutes for pint jars. And then once they're done, I place them on the countertop on a towel and allow them to cool for 24 hours before labeling them. Just make sure that they aren't coming in contact with a cold countertop because then you'll have some issues and you don't want that. But after that full day, check the seals. If everything is sealed, label them and take them down to your storage space, and they are ready to sit on the shelf until your family is ready to add them to your table. Canning pears is a wonderful way to preserve the harvest and enjoy the fruits of your labor all year long. With just a little bit of time and a few basic supplies, you can fill your pantry with jars of sweet, tender pears. Whether you grew them yourself, picked them locally, or bought them in bulk, there's nothing quite like opening a jar in the middle of winter and tasting the flavor of a sunny autumn day. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.